Prosecutors call her a teacher's worst nightmare. Elaine Claremont, a mother and self-described destructive force, charged with kidnapping a 6-year-old boy, a student at her daughter's school. The state says she was trying to teach the faculty a lesson about school security.
All right, it's not your normal kidnapping case. There's no ransom involved. There's no phone calls. There's no drop point. There was a point, though, a point trying to be made, apparently, by the defendants. And there you saw the prosecutors laying out all their facts during the opening statement. Let's see what our experts have to say about all this. Please welcome criminal defense attorney Brian Konoski, who's up in New York, also with us, family law attorney, and also former prosecutor Randy Kessler, who's with us here in strange case. But you've got a criminal defendant in a courtroom who was wanting to make a point, you know? Said, listen, oh my goodness, there are problems in this school with security. There's a 6-year-old kid just wandering out. They didn't even know he was missing.
Right, and there are a lot of ways to make a point, and that's why we elect officials, and that's why we pass laws. We don't have people with vigilante justice in this country. You know, you could pass through a security with a bomb to show that security is weak at an airport. Someone did that, they'd be arrested and thrown in the jail for good, I hope.
That's a good point. Or somebody sneaks into the White House state dinner without an invitation, and they're trying to prove a point. That's still not right.
It's a crime, and otherwise we say, guess what? You go by the laws you want to go by, or you go by the laws that you say you're supposed to go by. We go by the laws that are prescribed by our government.
The driving force after he's picked up. There she is. It's her home. She doesn't pick the child up, but the child is brought to her house after a phone call was made to her. She has described herself, and I think this is a bad fact for the defense, as a destructive force, someone who was out to get the school, to get those school administrators, and she really, you know, thrived on causing trouble with this Joe Mackey school. And you know what? I think those are some great facts, Randy, for the prosecution here, because this woman, she's a admitted rebel rouser. She's trying to cause trouble.
Well, you know exactly how you win a case like this, how you prosecute a case like this. Two things. You violated the law. Yeah, she delayed. She held the child against the child's will, and she makes the jury not like her. The jury doesn't like her because she's an angry person. She's one who goes out and rabble-rouses and raises hell. And you know what? People generally don't like people like that. They want people that go along with the system because people on the jury abide by the law. They go along with the system. This lady doesn't.
Now, there's Mace Yampolsky. He's the defense attorney. And you can tell this is a guy who's been in courtrooms a lot, very comfortable. One thing that he did that I really liked, and I don't understand why some criminal defense attorneys don't do this, is he demonstrated to the jury that he has sort of a relationship with his client. He went over and he wasn't afraid to actually touch her shoulders. He didn't distance himself from this criminal defense. No, he knows he's fine with her. He knows her. She's a very caring woman. And you know what? I like her, and I thought that was very good. Let's check in with our own experienced attorneys who are with us today. We've got criminal defense attorney Brian Konoski, who's up in New York. And, of course, here with me is family law attorney Randy Kessler. And, Randy, how about that? You know what? Randy, you're not a bad guy. You're not a bad guy. I'm not afraid to touch you. I'm not afraid to be over there. I like when a criminal defense attorney does that.
I think you're exactly right. He humanized her, personalized her, made the jury think she's one of his friends, one of her friends. I think what we do as lawyers is we sort of build a reputation. Hopefully it's a good one. And we lend it to our clients. And this is an opportunity for him to say, look, you respect me. I'm a lawyer. I passed the bar. I'm here, you know, being placed in a position of prominence. And she's a peer. She's elevated a little bit by his presence and by his touching her, being friendly with her. It's an absolutely wonderful strategy.
Defense is saying she was trying to right a wrong. She is the scapegoat. They're pointing the finger somewhere else, saying that the embarrassed, vindictive school district is really to blame here. The defendant did not intend to detain or imprison Rashad, and that the calls to the school district were updates on Rashad's location. Is she a noble woman? Do you think you can play that card that she's a noble woman in this courtroom?
She might have had the intent to fix a problem, but that's not how you fix a problem. You don't break laws to fix problems. You return the child, then you make a stink if you want. You can say, this is what happened. You chronicle it. People write books. They write to letters to the editor. You don't break the law and say, look, I'm proving everybody else is wrong. I'm right. Everyone's wrong. No, the law is the law. You follow it. Then you complain. Then you work to fix it. It takes a long time to change laws or to change policies.
How about if you're just out to get rid of that school administrator? And that, I think that's what the prosecution is going to say here, Brian.
Bring him back. He's 6 years old. It's September 8th in Las Vegas, about 100 degrees. He's wandering around the desert. He doesn't know where he lives. Can't give him an address. I mean, I think they helped him.
There you go, 100 degrees in the desert. You know, how does a prosecutor explain that? I mean, because the problem the prosecution has here, there's another person at fault here for this wandering kid, right?
Right, but there's air conditioning in the car. You know, she doesn't have to keep him at home to keep him out of the sun, right?
But here's the thing, though. Here's the problem. If Drake doesn't pick this child up, this child is wandering through the streets. It's 100 degrees somewhere in North Vegas. What happens to that child? I mean, isn't the jury going to be saying, hey, you know what? They did a good thing here. They didn't do everything 100% right, but they did, in fact, save this child, didn't they?
Well, they might, but, you know, it doesn't look like the jury's going to like Miss Claremont based on the prosecution's opening statement. You know, Miss Drake might have had good intentions, but this isn't about Miss Drake. This is about Miss Claremont. And, you know, there's a fine line. She should have gotten the child, returned the child. Why did she not return the child? And did she cross the line by restraining the child or keeping the child too long? And we don't know what too long means. You can't have one.
Well, here we're less than 2 hours. We're less than 2 hours. Now we're at 9:20. They arrive at Claremont's home. So who's arriving? It's Drake along with this child, this wandering child who she really doesn't know who he is. Then at 9:25 a.m., Drake called Joe Mackey School and asked Elizabeth Davington if they were missing a student. So to me, that seems somewhat reasonable. At least they're calling the school now to find out. That seems a little bit more reasonable here, Randy. They're kind of doing the right thing at 9:25.
Except we're in a kidnapping case, so why did she call the school? It sounds like she almost hoped there was a student missing. The real question is, what did Claremont say in that first phone call? Did she say, bring the child over here, maybe we can do something with this, make up some facts, get some media attention? Or did she say, drive back to the school, bring the child to the school and see if the child's missing? That would have been what a reasonable person, like we learned in law school, what would a reasonable person do? That's what I think a reasonable person would have done.
We go to 10:43. Bukhari then returns Drake's call and demanded that the child be brought back. Now it's starting to sound like a kidnapping where we have demands going back and forth. Then at 10:48, Drake, who now believes, there might be some trouble here, calls 311, which is the police non-emergency number, looking for some advice. All right, so now we're at 10:48. The child was picked up shortly after 9 o'clock. It's taken a little bit too long for my comfort level here for this child to be in these people's custody. And they, I guess, are under this saying, hey, maybe there is something wrong here. That's why they call 311.
Right.
Is that consciousness of guilt?
Maybe. You don't call 311 for advice. You call 311 or 911 because there's a crime and you've got to do something about it. You know, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. Brian keeps talking about it's only 15 minutes. Well,
now it's 10:48, Brian. It's getting a little, I'm not comfortable holding this child till 10:48. Trial. The fact that they wanted to get this publicity, they wanted to bring the media there, they wanted to make a big point about the security and just make a big thing out of it rather than return a child to his mother. And the media's involved and the spotlight's on it, that it's big?
That makes it bigger, but you know what? Who called the media? You know, she brought this on herself. You commit a crime, you know, and you just go to the court and you say, I want to pay a fine, I want to cut a deal, I want to make a plea. That's fine, but you know, when you're in the media and the whole world's looking at you and you're the example, guess what? You're going to be an example, and she is going to be an example, apparently.
John, what was the role?
For some reason, everybody thinks that I'm doing something wrong, and I don't understand why. I was trying to help this child, help her child get home.
All right, I want to go over to Randy on this one. Randy, I mean, if you're a prosecutor and this is the person you're trying to prosecute, it's got to be tough to jump up and down and say, this woman is evil. Ladies and gentlemen, you must find her guilty. I would have a hard time doing that.
Well, usually they don't testify on their own behalf, and this might have been the right call. Apparently it was, because there were two images portrayed. The prosecution portrayed her as evil, had a goal, an agenda to do wrong, and the defense portrayed her as an innocent person in the wrong place at the wrong time. She cleared it up, apparently, for most of the jury.
The principal of the school, the Joe Mackey School, and for the defendant, this is her nemesis. This is her rival. This was the woman that she was trying to drive out of the school, according to prosecutors. Well, let's bring in our experts now to talk about all of this. Brian Kanoski is with us from New York, and he's a criminal defense attorney. Also with us is Randy Kessler here in Atlanta. He's a family law attorney and a former prosecutor, and I'm hearing a lot of that today from Randy. Randy, how about that? What's your make of this witness, this principal? Do you think she's coming across and connecting with that jury, or do you think she's a little aloof?
She wasn't connecting with me, and I think Brian actually nailed it. I think the defense was eating this up. The case is not about how or why the child escaped or got away from the school. The case is about what happened once the child was already on the road. The prosecution is almost turning this into school, just prove that you didn't do anything wrong. The school's not on trial.
Yeah, they're not on trial. And if they were on trial, they'd be guilty because, I mean, the kid, he's out of the school. He's supposed to be there. He's not there. Let's presume that he's right, that it's not a kidnapping case. I mean, Randy, everything wasn't done right here by this mother. Is there something less than kidnapping that perhaps maybe be an appropriate charge? Because you're talking about life in prison here.
Well, that may be the problem, is we don't have so many shades of kidnapping. We have first degree and second degree. Maybe we should have 100 degrees for 5 minutes of kidnapping, 10 minutes of kidnapping, 20 minutes of kidnapping.
Yeah, how many minutes do you have to hold a child before it becomes kidnapping? Now, Elaine Claremont faces life in prison, but did she really commit a crime?